I feel privileged in welcoming our next guest, who is the enlightened soul illuminating his followers. He is Swami Tattwamayananda ji. Swami ji is currently the minister in charge of the Vedanta Society of North California, San Francisco. He served in various centers of the Ramakrishna Order in India as an editor, publisher, and teacher of Sanskrit, Advaitic texts such as Shri Shankaracharya's commentaries on Prasthanatraya and Indian philosophy at the Training Center in Balur Math, the headquarters of Ramakrishna Mission in India, before coming to United States. He had traditional training in Hindu scriptures, Sanskrit and Vedic literatures from his early days. Swamiji has received traditional education in Sanskrit and Vedantic scriptures and is frequently invited for lectures on yoga, Vedanta and traditional Hindu scriptures. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Swami Tattwamayananda ji.
Namaskar, my greetings to everyone. Good morning. This is early morning in San Francisco. So it's a great privilege for me to be here addressing all of you on this very interesting subject, Raja Yoga. Historically speaking, Raja Yoga, its practice and its philosophical aspects are mentioned in one of our ancient texts, the Bhagavad Gita. At the beginning of the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna speaks of a long lineage of philosopher kings, Rajashaya, who combined in their personality these apparently contrasting aspects of kingly dynamism and sagely wisdom, the efficiency, the activism, the dynamism of a ruling monarch, and the calm contemplative wisdom of a sage. Imam vivasude yogam proktavan aham avyam vivaswan manave praka manu ikshakavya abravit evam parampara praptam imam rajashyo viduhu sakalena ihamahada yogo nashta parantava. Thousands of years before, Plato described the philosopher king in his Republic. Lord Krishna speaks about these philosopher kings of ancient India, who on the one hand were active, efficient and dynamic, and on the other hand could understand the limitations of action and dynamism. That's why in one of the rather unimportant commentaries, Shankarananda Saraswati writes, Rajattum Aishwarya Sambatti Rishittum Tasyaha Sukshmartha Darsana Kshamattum. So Shankaracharya calls them Rajanascha Rishayascha Rajasheka. Those who could accomplish success in life, prosperity, success, victory. At the same time, had also the wisdom to understand where success stops, where they could look beyond material success. Tasyaha Sukshmartha Darsana Kshamattum. They were called Rajashaya, means philosopher kings. Now, how did they practice this wisdom, spirituality, contemplation on the one hand, and also dynamism and efficiency on the other? By practicing yoga. Yoga means yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Of these 8 elements of Ashtanga Yoga, yamas and niyamas played very important role. Ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, parigraha, sauja, santosha, tapaswadhyaya, isapnidhana. So when we practice non-violence, freedom from greed, having not desired to possess things that belong to others, contentment, inner purity, and also a sense of surrender and resignation to God's will. Then we are able to practice efficiency on the one hand, and also we will have the wisdom to understand where efficiency stops. Something more than efficiency is needed, that is spirituality. That's why the most harmonious interpretation and description of healthy-mindedness in Hindu tradition in Ayurveda is prasannatmendriya manaha swastaha iti abhidhiyate. A person whose senses, whose mind and his soul are in a state of perfect harmony, that person's mind is in friendly terms with himself. When our mind becomes our best friend, when our mind doesn't listen to the dictates of the senses, rather, when the mind is able to control the senses, and when that mind is linked to Atman, consciousness, then we can really practice both the qualities of a king and also the qualities of a sage. Now, interestingly, when we look at this, Patanjali Yoga Sutra throws some very important lights. One can enter this life through the practice of yamas and niyamas, and at the very beginning, we can practice what's called Kriya Yoga. Tapaswadhyaya Isar Panidhananani Kriya Yoga. And when we practice this, we are slowly able to go beyond our own karmic blocks, and we are able to control our senses. We are able to live a harmonious life. All efforts are only an attempt to remove obstacles. So whatever we do will help us to bring back our own inner perfection, our own inner consciousness. And then we are able to spiritualize our whole life. Every act, every action becomes a worship. Every word becomes a sacred mantra, and every thought becomes a meditation. It's just like a sculpture builds, creates an image of Buddha from a granite block. What he does is he removes all the unnecessary parts from the granite block, and then the image of Buddha emerges. Nimittam aprayojagam prakritinam varana bhedastu tata kshetrigavat. Patanjali writes in his Kaivalyapada. All our efforts are like efforts to remove the obstacles that stand in the way of the manifestation of perfection already within all of us. Like a farmer who wants to bring water from a nearby river to his field for irrigation, he cuts a canal. What he does is he removes the that part of the clay or mud from that part of the earth, and then it becomes a canal. Then water flows into his field. In other words, it is this state of perfection that is actually the implication of Raja Yoga. We are the masters of our own senses, this achievement of self-mastery. That's why Vyasa, in his commentary, says, talking about Parinama Dukkha, in the Sadhanapada, in the 15th sutra is Parinama Tapa Samskara Dukkaihi Gunavurti Visheshacha Dukkhameva Sarvam Vivekinaha. This aspiration, this desire to go beyond the senses, to look for higher spiritual wisdom, is called Raja Yoga. It comes only to those who are looking for a higher ideal, for a higher spiritual ideal that they want to achieve and practice in their life. So that's the real implication of the word Atha. That's the first sutra, Atha Yoga Anushasana. And how do we accomplish this? Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. By accomplishing this vritti nirodha, transcending the vrittis, transcending the samskaras. Yoga Sutra literature, especially the commentaries like Vyasa's Bhashya, then Tattwamayananda, and Yoga Bhashya Vastigam, and other important commentaries, they give a very wonderful description of how this is achieved, especially Vyasa's commentary. Our mind normally functions at 5 different levels: Kshiptam, Mudham, Vikshiptam, Ekagram, and Niruddham. One state of mind may be restless and cannot contemplate on anything. Another state of mind will be dull but equally in conflict with itself. The third state is called Vikshiptam. Many people suddenly may feel a great enthusiasm, interest in spiritual values, and but immediately they may lose it. When you are in a temple, you are praying, you feel a great sense of inner peace and tranquility. When you're back in your office, you may lose it. So this is called Vikshiptamana. As we practice meditation, prayer, and other spiritual disciplines, we are able to overcome this conflict frequently between the mind and intellect, the conflict between what we want to achieve and what our mind actually allows us to accomplish. Very often our mind may not allow us to practice what we want to practice. Through constant practice we overcome these obstacles and we ascend to the next stage, the fourth stage, ekagra and nirodha vritti. Now, one important point that Vedanti's scriptures mention is this higher evolution is possible even in modern times. According to modern scientists like Julian Huxley, we have become conscious of ourselves, human beings. Now, there is another kind of evolution that is possible. How can we become better human beings? Our biological evolution has come to an end, as Darwin says. But there is another evolution that is possible. The evolution, this ascent at the spiritual and cultural level. Raja Yoga actually implies this higher evolution. And when we practice these disciplines, yamas and niyamas, and Kriya Yoga, unselfishness, dispassion, when we practice all these great values, then we are actually opening the door to this higher evolution. And then we will achieve in our minds this inexplicable tranquility. It's called Chitta Prasada in the yoga literature. Or maybe in its outer expression, we'll be able to live in peace and harmony with the whole world. On the one hand, we will not be at the beck and call of our own senses. We will be able to direct our senses or mind in the proper direction. On the other hand, we will be able to enjoy peace and tranquility within ourselves. At the same time, we will look upon the whole humanity as one spiritual family. This is actually the highest state of human evolution. So the evolution that is possible beyond the biological, beyond the physical, the evolution at the spiritual and cultural level, that is the real significance of Raja Yoga. When we achieve this, we get out of this karma, vritti, samskara, chakram. I'm using the language of Vyasa and other commentators. Whatever we do will create its effect, residual effect of vritti, become samskaras, sankalpas, vasanas, and again we may repeat or avoid a previous action depending upon our experience. Now, when we normally live our lives, when we act and think and speak and interact with others, we are always under the influence of this karmic block. When we step into this path of Raja Yoga, what happens is we are able to get out of this karmic blocks, and then we will be able to bring out the perfection that is already within us. In other words, Raja Yoga means a spiritual homecoming. We are reconnecting with our own spiritual identity. When we achieve this goal, we will be able to live a harmonious life. Now, I can give many of these examples. Of course, Yoga Sutras called it Kridarthata or Chitta Prasada, Kridakrityada. When we feel within our mind tranquility and peace, then it means our mind is now friendly with us. When we feel inner conflict, then it indicates that our mind is in conflict with itself, it is in conflict with ourselves. So, when we practice these spiritual disciplines, we get out of this mental trap and we practice Chitta Prasada. In fact, Patanjali Yoga Sutras give a long description of how this is achieved by practicing certain important values in our everyday life. Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, and Upeksha. Patanjali, he recommends 4 approaches that can define our interactions with others. When we meet somebody who are spiritual seekers like ourselves, fellow pilgrims in this journey in spirituality, we should be friendly with them. And when when we interact with people who may be less fortunate, who are inquisitive but not fortunate enough to learn enough about spirituality, we should be compassionate. And then when we meet with people who are more advanced than us, we should be happy. We should feel, we should be able to share their joy. We should not be hostile or envious. We should not have any jealousy. We should be able to admire great and good qualities in others. When we appreciate good qualities in others, we